Okay, I've already said that, most of you didn't quite follow the instructions correctly. Now, some of you went ahead and did what we did last time, which means you were paying attention, and that's actually pretty good, okay? Although I said don't do that, you did it, meaning you knew what we did, and that's good, okay? So I'm not going to hassle you for not following instructions if that's what you did. I'm not going to hassle you anyway, but I'm going to point out you need to be able to follow instructions, okay? Because it gets in your way in your pre-calculus class, which is what we're focused on. Okay, so I said, estimate the y coordinates, written there right in the writing. I didn't say estimate an x coordinate, did I? Okay, so if you read carefully, you're not going to estimate an x coordinate, you're going to estimate a y coordinate. So let's just say I estimate the y coordinate to be, that's 4, 4 is a little bigger. I'm going to do 3½ which is 7/2. Now incidentally, y'all are doing all kinds of bad things with fractions. As a group, some of you do better than others. But as a group, it's just what I expect because our curriculum doesn't teach fractions. Your prerequisite courses don't teach fractions. They don't teach rules, they teach superstition or something. Which is what you got to teach some of the people that have to take these courses. So we want to get things in a little firmer basis in this course. So I'm going to use 7/2 because it's a fraction and because I want to illustrate some things. Your next assignment is just a back-up assignment on 5th grade arithmetic. Multiplying and dividing fractions. You'll find it easy, but you got to get it straight. Okay. Okay. And then there's another assignment due Monday, but or due Tuesday, I guess. And I gave a very similar assignment to the Fast 60 group, and they nailed it. Okay, so I think you're going to nail it. I don't think your next two assignments are going to give you too much trouble. But you got to get them, and you got to make sure you understand the rules. So anyhow, here we are. We have y equals 7/2, and I said then what? Plug that into this equation, right? So you get 7/2 equals 2/3 x minus 4. Now everybody has some idea how to solve that equation. But one thing I saw on more than one attempt is you multiply this by some number, usually a fraction, okay? Not always the right one, but it's a plausible thing to do. And you multiply this by that number, but you didn't multiply this by that number. The rule is you multiply both sides of the equation. So when you solve this, that's what you have to do. Now I'm going to use this board here just to kind of review for you what this takes. So we have the equation. Okay? In this equation, we'll give you the value of x for this line. Okay? When y equals 7/2. Now we could estimate that. It wouldn't hurt to estimate it. We don't want to plug it into the equation because that's not what the instructions said. Okay? It's what we did last time. So again, if that's what you did, it means you're paying attention, and that's not bad. But let's follow the instruction. And here's the x-axis. If this distance is 6, this is less than twice that much. So it looks like this distance is about here. That distance might be 5. So if this is 6, maybe that's 11 at this point. Okay? Yeah, let's see how that works out. Let's see what x really should be if y equals 7/2, okay, at this point. So, again, just to emphasize, y equals 7/2 here. Okay, plug that into the equation, that gives us this. Now how do you solve this equation? You have denominators here. And you're really not very good at working with fractions. You're going to be better after we've done a couple of review exercises, okay? We'll take care of that as best we can, because you do need to be able to do fractions, but when you're doing an equation, you never have to do fractions. Okay, what you do is you find a common denominator, which is what? Somebody show me with their fingers, what's a common denominator? Yeah, common denominator is 6. Multiply both sides. By a common denominator. This makes things so much easier that I'm amazed that people resist doing it. Okay? You multiply by the common denominator and you're not going to end up with any fractions. So you multiply both sides. You multiply this by 6, 6 times 7/2, and then 6 times 2/3 minus 4. Now you notice I multiplied 2/3 minus 4 by 6, not just 2/3 x, right? And it's 2/3 x, not 2/3 minus 4. Okay? Well, that gives me, 6 over 1 times 7 over 2 equals 6 over 1 times 2/3 times x, right? Minus 6 times 4 by the distributive law. In other words, 6 times this gives you this, and 6 times -4 gives you this. Okay, 6 times 7/2, you multiply the numerators and you multiply the denominators. Now when you're adding fractions, you don't add numerators and add denominators. Okay, you gotta have a common denominator to add fractions. To multiply, it doesn't matter. When you multiply fractions, you just multiply numerators and multiply denominators. Just remember not to do that when you're adding fractions. So that gives you 42 over 2. Here, 6 times 2 is 12 over 3. 1 times 3 is 3 times x minus 24. Since 6 is a factor of 42, 2 divides into 6, so 2 is going to divide into 42 evenly, and you're going to get 21 equals 4x minus 24. At this stage, you're probably pretty much home free. We haven't done a lot of equation solving yet we're getting into, okay? So, we add 24 to both sides. 21 plus 24 equals 4x minus 24 plus 24. So we end up with 4x over here, because negative 24 and 24 is 0. 21 and 24 is 45. We can switch the sides. 4x equals 45. And we can divide both sides by 4. 4x divided by 4 gives us x. 45 divided by 4 is 45/4. So that is the value of x. And that's 11 1/4. Well, you know, my estimate, x equals 11, turned out to be better than I expected. So I thought x looked like it was about 11, and that pretty well matched my result, or my estimate. But my result is if x is 7/2, I'm sorry, y is 7/2, now we know that the point where x equals 11/4, but that the x coordinate of that point is 11/4. So this point is 11/4. X equals 11. It's a pretty good estimate. It's so close that there's some luck involved. It would have been 11.5 or 10 3/4 or something. Okay, this emphasizes the point that this equation tells you everything you need to know about the line. If you want to find out the x coordinate of y is whatever, you have an equation that's easy to solve, especially if you multiply by a common blame denominator. Okay? So I want to emphasize that. Save you loads of trouble to learn to do that and get in that habit when you're solving equations. Okay, so that's, most of you have the rhythm but not the music, okay? But you had some okay instincts, but you need to learn to focus those and do things correctly, because actually if you're in pre-algebra, you're supposed to know elementary algebra and intermediate algebra, right? So this course should just be brushing you up on those things, but really we're having to teach a lot of it, okay? Now, I don't mind, I'm going to do whatever I can to help you through the course, but make sure, I think most of you need to work a little harder, okay? That's not you're probably doing everything you possibly can. If you can't do these assignments, you really need to dig into things and spend the time. If you haven't attempted any of the problems, haven't even opened the program, I'm a little worried about your work habits, okay? It might not be work habits, it might be life. You might have 17 members of your family all in one house, and they all have code except you, and you're trying to survive, okay? In that case, there's a very good reason why you're not getting this homework done, okay? But this homework is far easier than the homework you're going to get in the pre-calculus class and similar stuff. It's an easy version of pre-calculus, okay? And you really need to get this before you see things in pre-calculus. You're going to be stumbling all over yourself, okay? So get the work done. So you're kind of pretty much doing okay, even though you're not getting all the work done. But most people that aren't getting all the work done are pretty shaky at this point. Work hard, that's all I can say. Also, one thing you don't want to do is give up on pre-calculus and drop the course, because then you're out of this one too, okay? You want to stick with this right up to the drop rate to learn as much as you can. Even if you give up on pre-calculus, I would still say go to class, pick up what you can, but come in here and do everything you can, okay? So it comes to a point where you feel like it's just overwhelming, and there's no way you're going to get it, and you have done very poorly on your tests and quizzes and pre-calculus, and you feel like it's hopeless. Come in here and we'll try to give you hope, okay? Do everything we can. Okay. And of course, people that maybe need to hear that the most aren't here to hear it. Okay, well, let's go to the other problem. You have the value of your car. Okay, well, I can start working this right here. Okay. Find the slope of the line segment between the points and tell what it means. Well, the slope is easy. You just draw I was debating whether to draw the triangle up here or down here. It could be either place as long as you got a right angle here. As long as this is vertical and this is horizontal. Parallel to the x-axis, parallel to the y-axis. We're good. Okay, now we draw arrows. So we make sure we keep our directions straight. So we're sure to get the correct sign plus or minus for the slope. Because we're trying to find the slope. Well, now the slope here, well, it depends on what C is, okay? For me, this would be 6,000. So after 2 years, my car was worth $6,000. It means it probably wasn't bought new, okay? I don't waste money in new cars. Cars that get me from here to there, I don't care what it looks like. Okay. It's mechanically sound. I'm happy with it. Okay, and then this point is 10,400, same for everybody. So there's our point. What's our rise? Rise is the y coordinate minus the y coordinate. We're going from y equals 6,000 down to y equals 400, right? Now this isn't drawn to scale, because if this is 400, 6,000 is a lot bigger than this, right? 6,000 would be about 15 of these be up here somewhere. So it's just a representative picture, it's not a scale picture. Anyhow, the rise is the later value of y minus present value going in this direction, 400 minus 6,000. Which is negative 5,600. Okay? The run is x coordinate minus x coordinate, 10 minus 2 equals 8. That's negative 5,600 over 8, which is negative 700. So I'm going to write that here, negative 700. Put that rectangular box around it. So there it is. Okay? Now that's the numerical slope. What does it mean? Y is the value of dollars, T is the time in years. We don't need to put the coordinates in this, we just sketch what we already know. This, and the rise is negative 5,600, and the run is 8. Well, rise of negative 5,600 represents change in value, which is negative $5,600, because originally we said that this is the value of your car in dollars. T is the time in years. Of course, I said the same thing up here, but just to remind you, we said that originally, right? So when you interpret a graph, you got to interpret, when you interpret a slope, you got to interpret what the rise means. It means that this thing's lost $5,600 in value. Went from 6,000 to 400, right? The run 1 is 8, representing 8 years. I got $5,600 over 8 years, which is -700. -700 what? Well, dollars divided by years. That's dollars per year, right? I'll just use a dollar sign. Abbreviate year. There's $700 per year. And that's the average rate of change of the value of the car with respect to time. ROC stands for rate of change. A value, WRT with respect to time. This would be even more specific. Be on the interval to 10, the interval from 2 years to 10 years. We won't worry about that right now. Okay? You understand that that's the time interval. It goes from 2 years to 10 years.